Hey everybody, I'm Greg Soul, and I'm here with another CIQ demo, or maybe tutorial, or perhaps lesson. Lesson feels more fitting, but today I'm going to be talking about how you can do secrets management inside of Ascender. And I guess, to some extent, Ansible itself, kind of how that secrets management work. And so what is a secret? It's really just any piece of private information that you want to keep private. So here's an example of using some secrets in a playbook. So here in the var section, you can see I have Ansible _password. And now that's a magic variable, and that is what password is going to be used when it's going to try and say, for example, SSH into a remote host, right? A server or a network, a piece of a network equipment, right? It's going to try and SSH in, and I'm actually setting my secret here. You can see my secret is my secret. I also have an example here of a task. And so something really common for me is to manage my VMware environment. And one of the things it requires for those modules is to have a password associated with it, right? You have to actually plug in the password that it's going to utilize to connect to your vCenter. And here you can see I'm putting it plain text. Now, this technically would work and it is valid, but I wouldn't recommend it. I generally try not to say best practice, but it is a best practice not to put plain text passwords kind of anywhere, let alone in your playbooks, right? So generally what we're going to do is we're going to create playbooks. We're going to put those into our Git repositories, right? Our SCM or source control management. Well, that lives in there now. So if I put a plain text password, that's going to be in that version history. Now, most of you are going to be putting stuff in private repositories, but what happens if you accidentally make that public, right? You could be having a bad time. So what's one way we could obfuscate that? We could use the Ansible Vault utility. So this is a command line utility baked in when you do the standard Ansible install. It gives you the ability to kind of hash passwords, right? So it will kind of scramble up all that information. So you can take an entire file, say a file full of secrets, or say it's your inventory file and you've got some secret information there. You can actually take that inventory file when it's file-based, right? You're doing command line stuff. And you can encrypt all of that. And so at runtime on the command line, you would supply it with a password. It will decrypt that information. Now, you could also pick a specific variable inside your playbook, and you could encrypt that one piece, right? That one variable in there as well, using the vaulting system. And it is SHA-256-bit encryption, so it's pretty robust, pretty hard. But again, you're putting encrypted, or you're putting secret information into theoretically a repository, and while it may not be decryptable now, it might be in the future. So I try not to put any of that information if I can. So here's a quick example of what that same playbook would look like. I cut out the whole task portion, but for the Ansible _password, if I actually did use the Vault utility and I put it in here, it kind of would look very similar to this. You could see it's pretty massive, right? So if you're putting a lot of this inside of your playbooks, it consumes a lot of space. Not that that's necessarily a problem or a bad thing, right? But it kind of definitely interrupts the flow of things. So in Ascender, if we do have vaulted information or vaulted files inside of our repository, we can actually go into the credential section. You see here, choose the credential type vault, and it allows you to put in the vault password. So when you're doing it from the command line, you generally are going to give the dash, like ask for password or ask vault password. I can't 100% remember the syntax, but it will prompt you for the password. You can type it in and it'll decrypt and go. You can also supply it with a file that has the password in there, and then it will decrypt using that. Well, you can do that same sort of thing. You can emulate that experience in the credential section by creating a vault credential, and it will decrypt that information, whether it be right in your playbook or an entire file. So if you are familiar with vaulting, you want to continue to use vaulting, you have some very specific use case, you can still do that with Ascender, although it's not my favorite way of maintaining credentials. So again, I'm not a fan of storing secrets in files, right? Again, you put in your SCM, it could accidentally get out public. Even if it's not easily decipherable now, it might be later on, right? With quantum computing and stuff like that, it could be a problem. As well as if you're not storing secret information, even if it's encrypted in files, It's usually easier for auditing purpose, as well as the security teams generally have fewer problems with it. So it's going to make your life a little bit easier in that regard as well. So you can store secrets in Ascender. And I talked about it. I mean, it's 256-bit encryption as well. And it can be in the credential section. So if I pop into my personal Ascender here, I can go to the credential section and I can see I have a whole host of secrets in here, right? Different credentials that are storing information. You see I have some that are machine credential, and that's generally going to be how I log into all of my remote servers, right? So it's going to be my Linux servers, my Windows servers. It will be my networking appliances. I'm going to start typing machine. It'll pop up. You can see I can put in my username, my password, SSH keys, all of that good stuff, right? I can actually save that in here. And what that means is whenever I launch a piece of execution, it's going to grab this credential and it will insert it as Ansible_user, Ansible_password. It's going to use that to log into my remote equipment. So it's pretty convenient in that respect. Now, if you look right down here, I say it's more than just servers and networking appliances. There's also credentials in there for, say, your cloud providers and various things like that, right? So there's a myriad of different types built in, right? So your Amazon, your Google stuff, your Google Compute, your Azure, all of that's going to be in here as well. I think Microsoft Azure Resource Manager. But what if it is a credential type you need to maintain? Maybe it's some special API key or some special token you need to store that you want to use in your playbook. Well, how do I actually go about that? And you can actually keep stuff in your credential store using custom credentials. It allows you to securely pull any information you want from a user, prompt them for various things, and you can inject them as either, say, extra vars or environment variables at runtime into your playbook. So if you come down to the credential type, it allows you to create custom ones. You can see I actually have created several in here. One is my Mountain access key. So for Mountain, our repository where I do LTS stuff, long-term support, you actually have to have an access key. And so I created a custom credential that will inject that in my playbook. So it's going to securely maintain that and just push it into my playbook as an extra var at execution time. I also have generic credentials. I have SSH certificate key, right? So if I just want to keep a cert key in here, I can kind of fill in the blanks, copy and paste. If you look at any of my blog posts, I would say about 50% of them walk you through the process of doing all this. But once you create a custom credential, I can start adding credentials of various types in here. So if I look at my Ascender primary using my generic credential, I can click edit on this, and you can see I'm just prompting for username and password, nothing complex. Username is plain text. Here, the password, I marked it as secret. So it doesn't matter how many times I click the view button there, right? It's securely maintained. And even in logging of some of my tasks, it will obfuscate that information, right? So if I was running that VMware template and I was using these custom generic credentials, which I actually do pretty commonly, it will obfuscate that. It'll say no log on this like individual item due to its secret nature or whatever happens to be in there, right? So it'll actually help to obfuscate that information as well. So custom credentials allow you to really develop kind of any specialized information you want to store, maintain security on that. You can inject it into your playbooks. So very convenient in that respect. Now, say for example, I don't want to manually, statically maintain secrets inside of there, right? How do I actually go about that? We make lots of various parts of automation flexible. So how do we do that with secrets? We use something called a secrets engine. And really a secrets engine is just a server or a cluster of servers that sit off to the side somewhere in your environment that are queryable. So your individual users, your systems, and so your automation will have kind of a token or a username and password, and it will connect to that secrets engine and it will ask it for things. We support most of the major vendors that are out there. So your HashiCorp Vault, your CyberArk Conjur, PAS, AIM, Delinea, I know it is Thycotic, like that plus more are going to be available to you. And so ultimately what it does is whenever a piece of automation is going to be launched using a credential from a secrets engine, what it'll do is it'll stop before it actually executes anything, and it will query that secrets engine. It'll pull the username, password, SSH key, token, API key, whatever secret information, like sensitive information you're storing over there, it'll go and it'll pull that and it'll utilize it for that individual execution. So that could also be used with machine credentials, like just how do I log into this box? It could be, again, API keys or tokens or any of that stuff, right? That's all supported. And so it's also supported for, say I've got 10 hosts that are all using the same username password combo. You can do that, right? With a machine credential, it will connect and look up and do that, and then everything's great. Now you can also do per host password lookups. I've seen that in some environments. I've even written a blog post that actually breaks down and shows you how to do that step by step using CyberArk AIM paths, that kind of system. And so ultimately what it does is it will, inside of the playbook, it will query. I actually wrote a role to do it just to make it kind of reusable. But it will query for each one of those individual hosts, what's the password associated with this host? It will store all of that. And then it's able to successfully connect to all of those devices to perform whatever automation you want. Hopefully that helps clear a little bit of the secrets management kind of conundrum up inside of Ascender. But again, Ascender, AWX, AAP, they're all functionally working the same. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. If you have any tweaks or tunes, or you do this something somehow different in your environment, I'd love to hear from you. If you're tired of counting nodes and want a better way with some awesome support, give us a shout that way too. So happy automating, happy secreting, and we'll see you next time. Bye.